remind some of you that may not have been on any of our other sessions. My name is Sean Jackson, and I work in the Office of Education Technology on the Digital Learning Coach team. So don't worry. Some people were very concerned that Laura Raganas left KDE. No, she's still there. She's just prioritizing some other things, and I took this over for her. Because it aligns with my primary goal of serving as the K-12 computer science lead for the state and trying to expand access to programs across schools in Kentucky, and that's K-12. But again, Ann is our Certiport liaison and master of all things Certiport, and she's going to take us through in this session GMetrix and how that may look a little different this year, or maybe fill in some of the gaps that we may have as far as the current situation. I'm going to go ahead and again post the link to two things. The first one is to make sure that you get on my email communication list, and you just fill out that form, and I'll be connecting with you guys. And then the second is the back channel for all questions during this session, and we'll try to bring those up as appropriate, or try to follow up on those specific items later. So without further ado, Ann.
Hello, good afternoon to you. It's still morning where I am. I'm 2 hours behind you. I picked the mountain background so you can imagine what Utah might look like if it weren't the dead of summer, and we've already had our fires for the season, or a couple of wildfires. So I'm in Utah, a couple hours behind you, but I try to keep up with your time zone. So don't feel like you can't call me, can't ask questions. One of the things that Sean was talking about, the back channel for questions, the reason that we're asking you to put it in the Google document is because we're going to create an FAQ for you to refer to throughout the year. So it's unlikely that a question that you have another teacher doesn't have or won't have during the school year. So if you'll post your questions and comments in there, and then we can also use that document to help you throughout the year and other teachers throughout the year. So I get to be with you today. I wish I were in person. We've had a lot of change this year, a lot of unexpected change, and one of the sad byproducts of those changes, I don't get to be with you in person this year. So I got to see a couple of you in March. It was on that trip that I got recalled, and all travel was put on hold for the rest of the year. So I was lucky that I even got to be with you at all. We are going to talk GMetrix in this last session that I get to participate in for your summer conference. And the reason that we're going to speak to GMetrix specifically is because it is one of the things that is purchased for you as part of the CSIT Academy. So for the 6 programs that Certiport supports out of this program, Adobe, Autodesk, Unity, MTA, IC3, and my brain just melted. Well, there are 6, and my brain has melted and forgotten the 6th one, but for those 6, we have GMetrix practice tests, Apple, practice tests that go along with it. So we're going to talk about the GMetrix tool, a little bit about what it is, a little bit about how it's used, and because we didn't get a lot of time last year to use the new product that we have, those of you who are in the Imagine Academy, you would have used a slightly different GMetrix product that you purchased that I supported. We have single user licenses that accompany our program. So that means that when you are part of the CSIT Academy and you have a student who is 1 in an approved pathway and 2 a concentrator, meaning the student has participated in 2 other approved classes before they come to you, that means that they are eligible to receive a bundle, which we'll use Adobe as the example. They will get a single user GMetrix license so that they can access the practice tests for the Adobe program that they're testing on. And then they also get a certification exam voucher. And if necessary, they will get a retake. If they need a retake, they get one retake opportunity with that voucher. So this is one of the pieces of that bundle that you will have for your students that are both pathway, both in your pathway and concentrators. So GMetrix is really simply, it is the practice tool. So of our Learn, Practice, Certify model, Learn being the curriculum that you choose to accompany this program. We talked a little bit about that in our 9 a.m. session. The curriculum that you choose, we need to make sure that our students have a chance to practice those skills and or the knowledge that needs to be demonstrated in a form that the test can capture. So most of our students are going to experience the test as it would be in the actual certification environment. They'll get a really close simulation to that particular test, because as you know, each test is just a little bit different. And so they'll get an experience of what that testing experience will be like. They get a chance to test their knowledge, test their skills. And one of the most important outcomes is every GMetrix practice test, bell ringer, project, anything that you create in there that they will use, anything that you give them access to with an access code, they will get a score report at the end of that. And the score report aligns to the exact same objective domains as the certification exam. So that means that the student along the way has these points in which he or she can say, look, I have a mastery of this objective domain. Looks like I need to polish a little bit more on this objective domain. And maybe I really haven't grasped the concepts for this other objective domain. You as the teacher have access to those same data points, those same reports. So you will be able to see how your students are progressing as you're teaching, and they're practicing, teaching, practicing, remediating, teaching, practicing, all of that. The goal is for no student, no test candidate to sit down for a certification exam without having confidence that he or she is ready and will pass that certification. Now, every once in a while, there is something that slips through. They think they have a mastery and they don't, or they've had a bad night's sleep, or whatever it is, and they're not going to quite achieve that certification. So they get their certification score report that also shows them the level of mastery by objective. And so they can go back to all of their GMetrix tests that they've taken in the past and compare these different reports and say, oh, okay, well, it looks like this is where I need to do some more remediation. And I've talked about when I work with students, whether they're adult learners or if they're K-12 learners, I want them to own the outcome, which is why I have them regularly checking their certification and their practice tests, their objective domains. And so they come to me with a remediation plan of, I didn't master X, Y, and Z. Here's the remediation plan that I would like. So I may like you to make a custom test for me. I may like you to find some additional resources to help me with this particular objective. So GMetrix cannot replace learning. Just very simply, it can't. It's like putting a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old who wants to earn a driver's license, who has gone through the driver's ed handbook, and then putting them directly on the road. We don't want that outcome. And we also don't want them to get into a car with absolutely no information and no understanding of the rules of the road and start driving. So those two things need to go together in order to have a successful outcome, which in this case is a certification, an industry certification that they go forward with, that they can take with them throughout their career, throughout their next stage of education. And that is what we want to achieve, is a group of young adults who go into the workforce, who strengthen their community at Kentucky and the nation's workforce, because they have additional skills and resources that many people who've been in the workforce for a long time don't have. So our end outcome is to produce a better and stronger workforce within Kentucky and within our nation. So GMetrix can help assess student knowledge. You can create some individualized experiences for your students. You can enhance learning. You know, all of our students have some slightly different ways that they access information, but really we're helping them become comfortable and familiar with the testing environment. That's a big thing that makes us uncomfortable, is the unknown. and then be able to have those data points along the way to know their level of competency, their level of strength in various objectives as they prepare to earn a certification and go forward. So many of you have used GMetrix, so I'm going to operate as if you have some experience with GMetrix, or at least familiarity with what it is. And so I want to show you again how this fits within the Learn, Practice, Certify model. So in this particular program for CSIT, you get the practice piece and the certification piece funded out of legislatively appropriated funds. So you don't have to commit your classroom or school budget to that, but you get to select what your learning and curriculum tool may be. And we would be happy to share with you things that we know are aligned to objective domains. But Sean and I are not here to tell you what to use for your classroom, because we want you to be able to select what works best for you. But we are happy to advise you based on what we know and our experience. And then if you would like to get a demo of any of these products and see how it fits with the things that have already been purchased for you, then let me know. I can put you in contact with Lori Monson, who is the person who will get these demos for you if you need them or want them. And I will say that the reason that I have LearnKey on there, for my experience, that was a good tool, especially for those of you who have hybrid or virtual classrooms. It requires the least amount of disruption, or has the least amount of disruption from the experience they'd have in the classroom to being at home. And it's something that they can view on a mobile device, which is also really helpful. But I have no skin in the game as far as what product you select. That's just a product I happen to like for a lot of the programs that are within this offering. So in addition to your using GMetrix, I strongly recommend that you add some additional components of timed drills, vocabulary. There's such a huge disconnect between what we learn and the way that we teach and the way that we communicate, and then the language that a test may actually use to discover if a student has a level of mastery of concepts and demonstrable skill. So I always say don't underestimate vocabulary, because that's a place that a lot of people stumble, just is understanding exactly what we're talking about in the certification exam. And then most of the programs that we're working with have a study guide that you can use in addition to using the objective domains, which I say is the best study guide there is, because it tells you literally what's on the test. And then we have the list of certification programs that are part of our CSIT Academy. So if you have any questions about the specific programs or the exams within some of those programs, as you know, Autodesk and Adobe and MTA have multiple exams, and Sean and I would be happy to share some additional information with you on that. And then if you have experience with using GMetrix plus some of these other things that I would recommend you're using within or outside of GMetrix, if you come across a practice tool or a practice mechanism that you really like, share it with us. Let's put it in that Google document so that your teachers can learn from what you've discovered as well. So, Sean, any comments on the Learn, Practice, Certify slide that we have up?
No, I mean, nothing that I can really speak to in addition to what you said. I'd just like to reiterate that the Office of Education Technology, we serve as the administrator of this legislatively funded program. So what our office and what my role is to administrate and pass on your ability to help certify your students. We will not pass on dictates, mandates, anything like that, and tell you a curriculum that you need to use. So I think that's very important to point out. I am meant to serve as much help as I can give an individual teacher. And as far as where GMetrix fits in this stream of things, think of it as a student's calibration. They're getting calibrated to what the exam will look like, what will be on there. It is not to learn something brand new about the content. And so they're calibrating and adjusting themselves to the exam environment, to the question structure and things of that nature. So I think that's always good to keep in mind. So we're not just, and I think I used this term in the last session that we did, we're not a certification mill. We don't want to just keep trying to certify students, and however many failures it takes, it doesn't matter because we're not paying for it. Well, somebody's paying for it. It just might not be you. So we need to make sure that we're good stewards of these things. Yeah, we need to be good stewards of the legislature's money that they've provided to this, and make sure that we put our students in a good position to succeed the first time.
Right. And that's, again, the outcome that we want is a really robust set of young adults going into the workforce, for them to have skills that they can just hit the ground running, that they can make a living wage, that they can progress in their education or their career as they dream. And so, to just have the numbers of exams is not what we're looking for. We're looking for certifications, meaning happy outcomes for these students and for you, and for them and for you to have a really high degree of confidence as a student sits down for a certification exam, that the outcome is going to be what you've been working towards. So thank you for that. So let's kind of pivot to this practice piece from our Learn, Practice, Certify model, our 3 verbs. And GMetrix is designed specifically to reinforce the learning and the concepts, to engage the learner in a way that just reading may not. It's a way of measuring the progress that they have. It's a way of measuring how far they still have to go until they are ready to take a certification exam. So one of the things within GMetrix is, not only does it have these pre-made, just simulated certification exams in a practice environment, but you have, depending on the program that you're in, you're going to have some other ways that you may want to use it. All tests, all certification exams are timed, and that's just an added pressure. It's uncomfortable to be timed. And so as a student gets more and more familiar with being timed and needing to recall the information and perform the skills quickly and efficiently, the better that they will perform and the more confidence they will have. Again, I talked about vocabulary, how important it is to make sure that the question being asked has hit the student in a way that they know how to call that information forward or demonstrate that skill. And then so much of what we're doing in the workforce, let alone in education, is working collaboratively. It's understanding how we may participate in a larger project. And so everything from coding to media design to all of these things, very rarely is there only one person who touches it from start to finish. There may be someone who starts it and includes other people. There may be people who are engaged in doing checks. And so it's helpful for them to understand that the way that they work needs to be open to input from others as well. And so GMetrix is meant to help on all of those pieces of practicing, which I categorize as our reinforcing, engaging, and measuring. So let's talk about the way that GMetrix is structured. So there's the teacher portal, the admin portal, and that is online at gmetrix.net/manage. Now, everyone who had a student in the last year or previous years that participated in the GMetrix product should already be given their admin access to GMetrix. If you're not sure, just let me know and I can check that for you. But if you were part of the CSAT Academy last year, you'll carry those same credentials unless you've changed schools. For students, it's a really simple step of them registering themselves as a practice test candidate, and that's at gmetrix.net. And then the GMetrix test engine, especially for the LIDA exams, the LIDA and the application exams, which currently are Office, Adobe, and Autodesk, those require the SMS, the Skills Management System test engine, to be installed locally with the software that they will be performing the tasks in. So similar to the way that the exam apps where you need to have the software application downloaded, and that opens up within the test engine, the practice test engine or the certification test engine, so that the student can perform some skills. Now, I know the question that we're thinking, which is I may or may not, more likely will have at some point during this year a point where my students are not in front of me, but I need to continue to teach them. And the challenge that we had was for LIDA exams, live in the application, students had to have the application installed on a home machine or a Chromebook, which they couldn't, and they needed to have GMetrix installed on a Chromebook, which they couldn't. So GMetrix has been working all spring and into the summer to have the LIDA exams accessible via the cloud as well. So I have been following up with a date of when that will be completed, and they just keep telling me fall. So they, even just as of an hour ago, I did not have an updated date at one point, and it'll be in phases. So I believe that Microsoft Office will come online first, and I believe that that is August. And so I think we'll see most of the programs that impact us in September. So as soon as I know, I will share that with you, but I'm going to chat with us as if we will have access to all of the exams on student devices such as Chromebooks. So ones that even don't have software locally installed, they will be able to have the same experience as those who have it locally installed, or if they were participating in your classroom, okay? So I know that's a lot, so I want to pause to see if there are any questions about that.
We just had one question that was answered over here. I just took that. Is the cost of GMetrix covered under the funding, or is it only covered for, or is only the certification exam covered? We have a GMetrix practice that's covered, a test, and one retake for these programs. So we have the practice and certify covered. All
and
you.
I want to clarify, those are the Certiport issued programs.
Yeah.
CompTIA is not.
CompTIA is different.
Yeah, the CompTIA and then your AP courses, obviously those are not administered by Certiport, so they don't fall under this umbrella of practice, test, user license, certification, voucher, and then retake if needed. So that's a great question. Always good for us to clarify, because this program is still relatively new, and we're still getting everybody up to speed on what this is. And so that is correct. The learning curriculum courseware piece is up to you. So you get to select it, and you also get to fund it. But the practice piece and the certification piece of the exams that Certiport administers is funded by the legislature.
Mm-hmm. And just another one. So James is asking, do we sign up for a teacher admin account, or will a login be provided to us? He's never used GMetrix before, so we understand we've got a lot of people brand new to this program. I think you went through the process. Could you just revisit that one more time?
Of course. So we will have, Sean is going to work with you to find out what your needs will be for this school year. So he will make sure that you have the approved pathway, and that you have approved concentrators. And Sean, correct me if I get this in not quite right, but a concentrator is defined as a student that has had 2 other pathway courses before they come to you. Sean, did I say that correctly?
Yes. So I believe the exact wording is 2 completed courses and enrolled in their 3rd. And
yes,
that means a few different things depending on where you are. So it even accounts. So the reason why that language is there, it does account for building a completed pathway that students actually participate in throughout their high school career, rather than I'm going to take 2 different courses now. And so there's some flexibility, but it is worded that way for a reason, as far as the statute is concerned.
And if you have questions about that, Sean is your contact. He's your expert, and that will be really The person who can clarify specific KDE is going to be Sean. I'll answer what I know, but I am not a KDE employee, so I will definitely be removed from the information. But to kind of revisit that, if we have all of those things met, then you say to Sean, I need 10 MTA, 5 Autodesk Maya, etc. He'll work with you to get that number. That will be submitted to me, and I will assign those exam vouchers into your Certiport management portal, and then I will go into your GMetrix admin portal, and I will assign the user licenses. And I'm going to show you what you do next. But if you do not have access to your current schools this coming school year, GMetrix admin portal, just send me an email, give me a call. I can help you with that. An existing admin can add you, or I can. So if you do not have one, and it's the same thing for Certiport, an existing admin can add you with your Certiport user ID, or I can. So please don't feel concerned if you don't have that. We will solve that problem.
And I believe I misspoke. Am I still? Yeah, I did. I believe I misspoke. I think I was thinking of a different statute. That's my bad. Tanya Warren called me out on that. Thank you, Tanya. She's from Career and Technical Education. So I'm posting the exact wording of the statute in our chat window. And so, Tanya, if you could unmute yourself and just clarify. So they just have to consecutively complete at least 2 related career pathway courses, correct?
That's correct. And Sean, that's something that just changed. Last year,
Okay,
they moved
that's what
over.
I thought.
It did used to be the students had to be preparatory, and that was they had to do 2 courses and they had to be enrolled in a third. So that has just recently changed, and it's going to be 2 completed courses. So yes, that is new. So that is the change in moving from preparatory to concentrator.
Okay.
So now they don't have to be enrolled in that third course. They just have to have 2 completed courses. So I just wanted to jump in there. I know.
I knew it was different. My gosh, you guys just make all these changes and don't tell anybody. Yeah.
Well, that's why we have these conferences, right?
Exactly. No, thank you for the clarification. I think I'm thinking of the old statute that I guess we administered the Imagine Academy under. I do remember that back when this program started as Microsoft Imagine Academy for Kentucky, my students did have to be enrolled in their third. So
yes,
it's a good thing that
correct.
This changed. That's good.
Yeah,
I think that's what we had last year. So, there are so many things that are coming at you as a teacher, and so we want to recognize that we are a resource for you for this program. I will share my presentations. We will have these documents with FAQs. Sean and I have already put together some general plans for some webinars once we get back to school. So this is not the only opportunity that you'll have to learn some of these things and to share some of these things with your fellow teachers. So thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Sean, for bringing us the most up-to-date information, and we'll continue to share that with you. So thank you. So let's pivot to what the admin portal will be. Excuse me. For those of you who have already experienced this will be a reminder. For those of you who are new, once you're given access and you're assigned some of these user licenses, then this will make a little bit more sense. But I have these screenshots here so that the next time you see it, it'll kind of trigger that memory. So your GMetrix admin portal, which is that gmetrix.net/manage, that's your admin portal. This is where you will log in. From that place, you can download the SMS, the test engine. This is where you can add other administrators to your account. This is where you will create access codes so your students can actually get to those practice tests. This is where you'll run reports. So this is your admin portal for GMetrix. So this is where you will have all of the things that you need to get that data, to administer the program to your students. So on that main menu, one of the first things I want you to know is there are a bunch of resources for you. In addition to this presentation, the PowerPoint I'll share, there are videos and guides and all kinds of other things on your home page of an admin. So you'll just scroll down to the bottom of that page and you'll see this section that has the resources, the support and resources that you need, particularly the video tutorials. So when I was first learning GMetrix, gosh, how many years ago was that? 8 or 9 years ago. This is how I taught myself. I didn't have anyone I could go to that could teach me GMetrix. So I went in and used the resources that were there so that I could learn it. So I think you'll find those really helpful, particularly for those of you who are new. So the first piece is adding and managing the other GMetrix administrators. And remember that in this case, administrator means someone who administers the program, not an education administrator. So this doesn't mean your CTE director or your principal, unless they have a reason to need those reports. These are the teachers who are administering this program to your students. So it's really easy for you to add other people. When we add them, we use your school email account as your login, and we use the temporary password of lowercase GMetrix. So that should be temporary, but I can tell you that almost every teacher I've created an account for has kept the lowercase GMetrix. So always a good idea to make your password a little bit more difficult than that. But this is where you can add, remove, and manage other admins on your account. Okay, so here's the important question, is when we have these user licenses that will be assigned to our students, this is a little bit different than what you've experienced with a GMetrix site license. So these user licenses are not attached to a student and not attached to a program until you create the access code. So you will go into your GMetrix admin portal. So here is our homepage again. You'll see that right in the menu option and then on the getting started blue bar, or the quick access blue bar, you will see to create and view access codes. So each user license will need an access code to be given to the student so the student can access the practice tests and the things that you want that student to see. So you will need to associate a program, and you will need to associate anything else that you want to be part of that access code. So the way that I remembered how an access code works is I thought of it like a hotel key card. So I can come into the hotel and I'm supposed to stay in that hotel, but I can't walk into a room until, in this case, the admin creates a code for me to access the room they want me to have. And so they put this information in this card that I use, my access, to get into the right doors. Does it let me into the fitness center or the business center or concierge level? The person who codes that card, or the person, you, who codes this access code, determines what kind of access and what kind of experience a student will have once you give them that code. So when you create an access code for an individual user license, there's a wizard that will walk you through and prompt you what you need to do. You always need an identifier. So an access code, if I remember correctly, I think it's a 5-digit number, and then you've got this identifier that you create, and then a 5-digit number. So because you're creating these for students, you might want to consider part of the identifier being their initials, or if you want to create them for a particular program, you might use ACA, Adobe Certified Associate, so that you can at a glance look at an access code and say, this is for Judy, or this is for one of my students in the Adobe program. So think about that identifier as a way for you to really quickly at a glance know what that access code and for whom that access code was created. And then the number of students, this is going to be 1, because this is a single user license. And then you will go into the expiration and into the type of code. The next part is going to be important, is to select the correct program. So if you have a student that is studying Autodesk and you accidentally assign them Adobe, if they redeem that access code, then it'll permanently be assigned to Adobe. So you need to make sure that you're assigning the correct program. And that's why you want to make sure that the identifier makes sense to you. And so you will assign them, and then in Adobe, I am only going to assign them to one of the Premiere. I need to make sure that they are only accessing particular practice tests, because they're not doing all of the Adobe suite. They're doing one application. So this is where you just need to take a moment and make sure that you're assigning them what you mean to assign them. Okay? If you have any custom tests that you've created in advance, you can assign them at this point to the access code. And because you're going to be doing access codes for individual students, it would be easier for you if you create some of the custom tests in advance and assign them during the access code creation, rather than trying to create a custom test and then assign them to the specific access codes. And again, this is why it would be worth your making sure that you can tell from the list. So when I go to assign a custom test or a custom bell ringer, and I need to assign it to access code, rather than having to open each individual access code and figure out for whom it was created, I can see at a glance based on my identifier, this one is for Judy, who's in Adobe. Okay, any questions on that? Great, you're all experts. So we'll go through this wizard. We'll get a chance to confirm the settings before we actually create that access code. So you'll have a chance to review it before you actually create that. And once you've reviewed that and you're comfortable, you'll create that access code. And now you need to share that with the student that for whom that code was created. So if I created one for Sean and he were doing Apple Swift, I would have selected that program, and I can either assign it to him in email, I can put it in a Canvas or a Schoology or Google Classroom, whatever it is that you're using, and just let that student know this is designed for you, this is your personal access code. I thought that I heard a question. Did I hear one?
I don't think so, except for, and we might get to this question a little bit later. I didn't want to bring it up now, but since we have just a little bit of time, do you anticipate that there's going to be an additional cost for the new GMetrix Online? And this is mainly dealing with people who are in school situations that are purchasing vouchers for exams that lie outside of the scope of the CSIT Academy.
Oh, you know, that is a great question, and unfortunately it's one I can't answer.
I didn't know if you could. Some of the documentation that I've read indicates that there possibly will be.
Well, and I'll, you know, with most products, after a certain amount of time, there is an increase in cost. And so the person that will ask will be Lori Monson, our territory manager for Kentucky. If you don't have her contact information, you can email me and I can forward it to her. But for those of you who are part of this program and will be given a user license, this process is being taken care of by the KDE, right, using that legislative funding. So the second, I wasn't sure if this was also part of the question that I mentioned earlier, that we're going to move some of these, well, GMetrix is going to move these LIDA exams to be accessible via the cloud. So to access those as part of these user licenses that you already have, you will not have to pay an access fee for that. So changes like that will be part of the program that you have either been given and it's already been funded, or that you're purchasing. So I'm not sure if the question was one or two or a combination, but I apologize that I don't have figures on what, if any, the price increases may be for any of the GMetrix products, but I will happily connect you with someone who has that information.
No, and thank you. I think we all understand that with the developments and with, especially, you know, with it, for Kentucky at least, and most other states, we shut down in like the prime time for certification and testing season. Right. And so I understand why a company, an entity such as Certiport, CompTIA, everybody was concentrated on, we need to get the certify portion fixed because that's what people want right now. And right, they worried about the practice after the fact, which, you know, that's very understandable. But as we learn more, we will pass on as much information as we garner.
Well, and to clarify to that point, Sean, GMetrix is not a Certiport right company. Mm-hmm. Certiport is a master distributor for GMetrix, but it is not owned by, and so we are independent. We just work very closely together. And mm-hmm, obviously we have found there's an alignment between our products, which is why we have a situation like this where we can offer a bundle for you. So I apologize that I don't have information that is specific to GMetrix, and I will work hard to continue to try and get information for you, but GMetrix has not released that information to us, or if it has, it has not made its way to me yet. So I apologize that I don't have the information. The questions you're asking are very good ones, and they are questions that you're not the only ones asking, and I am working to try and get those answers for you. And when I have them, I will share them with Sean and we will get them to you. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. All right. So as part of having an access code, there may be a time when you need to go in and edit that. So I always recommend that when you have an access code for a student, don't allow everything that's available for that given exam to be shown, because sometimes a student can get overwhelmed by all of the choices. And let me give you an example of that. For the majority of the GMetrix practice tests, you have actually a couple of categories within that. So you have 2 to 3 versions of a practice test that most closely mimics the certification exam, and that comes with each of these programs. Depending on the program and the exam, there may be some pre-made projects, there may be some skill reviews. It very much depends on if it's a light exam or a selected response or a simulation or an item-rich exam, and it depends a lot on what that program, for example, Apple, contracted with GMetrix and with us. So what I recommend doing is don't release all of the content in GMetrix within a given exam focus all at once. And the reason that you do that is because that way a student doesn't wind up migrating into some of these practice tests when you want to save them until they've learned all the material, so that they're not just going in and taking that test over and over and over again and memorizing the test and not learning the content. So when I manage GMetrix for adult or young adult learners, I hide everything but the thing I want them to see today or this week. And so you can go in at any point and access the code that you made and make real-time edits. So if Sean's my student and we're in Apple and I want him to see a review instead of a test right now, I'm going to hide everything but that review. And when he has met all of the requirements that I want him to take the first practice test, he's done all the learning, he's done all these other things, I'm going to hide everything but that one test and see how he performs on that. I'm not going to let him see the other ones until I know how he's performed on this first one, and we can make a decision if it's time to remediate and go back and hit some additional skills and knowledge before he comes back to practice again. So I want you to be aware that you have a lot of control and a lot of influence over what your student experiences in their practice piece and in their review and engaging and reinforcing. So be aware that that is something not only that you can do, but I encourage you to do. So the biggest question I have, especially when it comes to these individual user licenses, is creating and editing or managing access codes. So I want to make sure that you feel as comfortable as you can today with that information. And before we go on to the next piece, which is custom tests, is there anything that anyone wants to ask or contribute or give a best practice tip on that before I go forward? Okay. I'm going to assume that you either feel shy and would rather put it in our Google Doc, or you're waiting to see a little bit more before you have those questions. And again, this is not the only training that I will share with you. This is our training that we were lucky enough to get a spot at the summer conference so we could share this with you. We're recording it. I'm going to share the presentation, and then we'll do some additional webinars, trainings, and office hours as we all get back into the classroom. Okay, so custom tests. This falls under the umbrella, and we think these are just tests, but I'd like you to think of test as the placeholder for what this is. You can create custom tests by objective domain. You can create them by timer. So I want my students to get used to accomplishing or answering questions in a shorter and shorter time so that they get more and more efficient. I could use these as a bell ringer. I could use them in the training mode instead of the testing mode, so that as they're learning, they can get help to answer some of these questions. So the test part is just the placeholder for anything that you want to create here. And I want you to know that each program is just a little bit different. So the resources that you have for Apple will be different than what you have for MTA, than what you have. So it's worth going in and getting a feel for this. But you can go in and create a custom, whatever it is, for your students. And then once you have created this thing, you attach it to an access code for student Judy or all of my students in Adobe. And that's why it might be worth creating some in advance, and then you can just assign them to the access codes as you create them for individual students. So I create my custom tests. I have that menu option from my main admin menu. It's also in my quick bar, that blue bar in the middle. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to select the test name, and then you're going to select the minimum score. And again, another reminder around the test name, give it a name that it's something that at a glance you know what it is. This is my Chapter 1 bell ringer. This is my midterm collaborative project, so that you can know at a glance what it is, and you can reuse these year over year if you want to. Okay, so your minimum score, you are selecting what is the minimum passable score. So if I set it at 70, any student with a 70 or above is considered a pass. If I set it at 100%, that means they have to get 100% to pass it. So think about if you're putting it in training mode, there's no reason that they shouldn't get 100% because they have help along the way. Or if I'm trying to create a bell ringer and I just want to know where they are, then I might set it really low. So just be aware that the minimum score that you're setting is the minimum passing score. And if it's in a training mode, it should be pretty high. If you are doing a custom test to help them gauge their readiness for a certification exam, it should also be really high, okay? Then you get to select if it's in training mode or testing mode. Testing mode is more similar to the test. The help feature is disabled. They have that countdown timer. Training mode, the timer is removed, and they have this little help feature that will tell them how to answer that question, how to perform that task, what to do next, okay? Then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to select the program, Adobe, the exam, Premiere, and then you can go down by question category, by objective domain. You can make this as narrow or as broad as you want. So if I wanted just a general quiz, I could randomize some questions and grab 6 of them, and I want it all done in 20 minutes, or I want to create some timed experiences. As a general rule, we allow 1 to 2 minutes per question. If you're trying to kind of mimic the certification exam. So most certification exams have between 30 and 40 questions, and it has to be completed in 50 minutes. So we want them to be gaining efficiency, to be able to pull that information forward very quickly, to be able to perform that task very efficiently. So think about that as you're creating your custom tests. And then once you have created your custom test, you need to give it a vehicle that it can be delivered to our test candidates. So that will be delivered via their access code. So you will now assign it to individual access codes, or you can have these tests made. And when you're creating access codes, you can select from the custom tests that are already available. Okay. And then, of course, the important piece is that you get to do all of this reporting on anything that your student does in GMetrix. You can run these reports by access code. You can run them by time frame. You can see the breakdown by student. You can see the student's individual score reports, or you can see an all up and see how a group is performing as a whole. So you have all of these mechanisms to view how your students are performing. Your student, after everything that they do, every bell ringer, every project, every training, every custom test, everything that they do, they get a score report. And according to the parameters that you set or were set by the existing exams, then they can see, did I get a pass fail? How did I perform by objective? Where do I rank among other students? Can I go back and review the questions that I missed and see where I may have gone wrong? It gives me, as a test candidate, I can see, oh, I just didn't understand the way that question was formed, or oh, I thought it wanted me to perform this task. It was really asking me to perform this task because I read it too quickly. So all of this data, all of this feedback, all of this immediate reflection on the student's performance really helps them, again, build that confidence in what I'm good at and helps me know what I need to review and spend a little bit more time polishing. Okay, so just remember that GMetrix is a tool to practice, to reinforce, to learn. It will not replace learning. It will not take the place of a certification exam, but it is a really powerful tool for you to gauge where your students are excelling and where they need a little bit more polish, and the same thing for them. And I want to remind you that the tutorials and the resources that's on your homepage, when you log into your GMetrix admin portal, you scroll down and you'll have all of this information that you can see videos and guides and get to the support page. So you won't be left alone once we leave this chat today. Once we move into the classroom, we will continue to support you, continue to help you, because I want you to know that you have these tools, and Sean and I are here for you to use them successfully. That's the end goal, is that we have students that leave us with additional credentials and additional knowledge and skills that makes them really remarkable adults as they go forward. Sean, I know I'm cutting right at that time. Were there any other questions that came up?
There were no additional questions that popped up, but I appreciate you again taking the time to do all of these sessions for us. And again, guys, this is not going to be the last time that we go over some of these items.
You can't get rid of me that easily.
No. And just understand that our goals are aligned. You guys want to make sure that your students are prepared. We want that as well. And however we can work together and support you, that's what we're going to do. So there's never, there's never any dumb questions. It's never going to be, I already told you that. It's just going to be, hey, let's go through this. Let's dig in and do the work. I've been in the classroom until June. I went through this process and had to tell kids they couldn't certify. And so we're not in that situation now. And so what we need to do is prepare ourselves to be able to help them be successful on these exams. And again, Anne, thank you so much for conducting these sessions for us. Thanks everybody for joining us. And make sure that if you didn't fill out that contact form, it's in that back channel document. And if you need to ask additional questions, go ahead and put it on that back channel, and I'll be following up with some individuals and making sure that we get connected, okay? Thank you all so much.